Committee Chair Mike Rogers. He's Republican from Michigan. Keith and Jimmy are still with us. Chairman Rogers, thank you very much, sir. Is there truly conclusive evidence that one side or the other has really used chemical weapons?
Larry, when I look at all of the evidence, all of the intelligence and the body of reporting over the last 2 years, I come to the conclusion with a high probability that the Assad regime has used, at least in limited quantities, chemical weapons. They've also put them in a position to be used, and I believe, and the intelligence community I think believes, that they have serious intent to use them under circumstances. So the red line that the president talked about August 20th was if they move chemical weapons or use chemical weapons, that changes the calculus. We have a humanitarian crisis growing that's impacting all of our allies in the region. You have chemical weapons and conventional weapons that, if in a fall of Assad regime without some order subsequent to that, will be a disaster for the Levant, the Middle East, and Southern Europe. So we have a growing crisis here we need to do something about.
All right, so you're just to sum up this, your view is that the intelligence services and other related agencies, they have made this determination that chemical weapons are being used, because the news organizations, including NBC News, cannot pinpoint anything specific. You're saying these intelligence agencies have created some kind of combined structural decision on this?
Well, let me refine. I'm an FBI agent, so I look at all of the evidence. I look at all the evidence and all of the body reporting over the last 2 years and believe there is a high probability that at some point the Assad regime has used at least a limited quantity of chemical weapons. They have also put them in a position for use. But think about where we are, Larry. They've fired some 100 Scud missiles at civilians. You have huge refugee problems bleeding into Jordan. You have al-Qaeda, some thousands now, on the ground fighting in Syria. That's a dangerous thing for all of us, given the quantity of chemical weapons and conventional weapons. You have refugee problems on the Turkish border. The al-Qaeda, Hezbollah action in Syria is very, very concerning to recognized terrorist organizations. This is real trouble real quick. And if you want a diplomatic solution, and I still think there's one possible, you can't do it if you have no credibility with the opposition and no credibility with our Arab League partners. And right now we find ourselves in that. So you have to build that credibility. This is not about boots on the ground, by the way. I want to make that very clear. This isn't the 101st Airborne Division showing up.
I was just reading. Okay, but when you say boots on the ground, am I wrong? I thought you said over the weekend that you've joined in with Senator McCain and Senator Levin, and you want some kind of special forces to go into Syria to try to, I don't know, identify, locate, or somehow get these chemical weapons back. Hence, I call that boots on the ground.
No, I think it's really important to be clear about what we're trying to do here. We have small group, special capability forces that we can add to the mix here that is not at the front end of the fighting, but brings special capabilities to this. So through intelligence, training, equipping, and then rallying our Arab League partners in the region so that they're taking the front end of this, what is going to be just a huge catastrophe if Assad falls with all of this al-Qaeda and Hezbollah and everybody working to try to get those weapons. We have a very special capability that we can provide in this that brings credibility to the United States. And by the way, that's what will give us the credibility to negotiate a diplomatic settlement here. That's the whole point of this. So you have a bipartisan call from both the Senate and the House saying, Mr. President, now's the time. You don't have to do big boots. This isn't big military, but this is about the center of U.S. influence and using small groups, special capabilities to bring this to the right conclusion.
All right, small boots, special capabilities. Okay. President Obama has called this a game changer. If chemical weapons are found, he called it a game changer. But he said, Mr. Chairman, that he would bring in the international community, which doesn't sound like aggressive American action. In your judgment, is the president behind the 8 ball on this story?
Well, you have 70,000 dead. The situation there has deteriorated badly. I think we are behind the 8 ball. When the opposition initially tells the Secretary of State of the United States we're not interested in a meeting, we've got a huge problem. And they're not buying into this political coalition that's being plopped on the folks who are actually fighting on the ground. That's a problem. If you really believe in a diplomatic solution, you have to have credibility. And what we're saying is we can stop the Scud missiles from striking civilians. We ought to do that. We can render their ability to deliver chemical weapons useless. We ought to do that. Right. And so we have these special capabilities that can project power without being at the front end of this fight. And that's what people are talking about.
You want to
I don't understand what you're talking about. You said we have special capabilities that can project power without putting boots on the ground. What exactly are you saying we should do? And if you were president, what specifically would you do that the president isn't doing now?
Yeah, I've laid this out in an op-ed recently in the Washington Post. And we're in a bipartisan agreement in both the House and the Senate on this. Push down. You want a no-fly zone, safe zone with our Arab allies. By the way, this isn't just by the United States. So, including the Turks. So you push down in the north. You have a safe zone where you can bring people to train, so they get U.S. training quality. We can equip them to go down and be force leaders and leverage their influence in these groups so that these groups don't get taken over by Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah and other extremist fighters who we know are proliferating the region now. And what you do is you bring down your capability to shoot down missiles incoming and aircraft that's incoming to destroy civilian populations in these training centers. So that's how you do this in a way that kind of moves this ball along, and we get a safer, and it's in our national security interests to make sure these weapons don't proliferate around the region.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Many thanks. House Intelligence Chairman Mike Ross. Appreciate the update. Up next on Kudlow, it's no